I think the wake-up call from Europe has happened sooner than the US because obviously they are closer to Ukraine. And in fact, some Ukrainian companies have partnered with European defense company to produce drones. And second, Europe, you may have read that last year, James, but a few airports in Europe were shut down because drones were flying over. I think Munich
Yes.
was a high-profile one. And so European is really accelerating also the adoption of drones and unmanned system into a battlefield, but also into civilian applications.
Hey everyone, this is James from the Control Listen podcast brought to you by Octopart. Today I have a special guest for you. This is Gabriel Guglielmi, Vice President of Global Product Management at Infinite. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to have you.
Hi, James. Thank you for having me and appreciate that.
Anytime. So today I just wanted to ask you a bit, starting off about your background. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've done in the industry prior to this?
Yes, absolutely, James. I've been into the component industry for now close to 30 years. The first half of my career, I was into the semiconductor industry at ST Microelectronics, starting from product management, going all the way to managing a few product divisions for ST Microelectronics.
Mm-hmm.
And then after these 15 years, I moved into the interconnect world in different companies, uh, president role, GM role, and then finally joined Infinite Electronics in 2019,
Mm-hmm.
where I've been a vice president of global product management, as you said, covering the portfolio of the company. So let me say more about the company Infinite Electronics.
Sure.
So we are a privately held company and a US company, and Infinite Electronics owns 19 different companies, such
Okay.
as Pasternak, Fairview Microwave, Elcom, etc. So 11 of these 19 companies are in the US
Mm-hmm.
and 8 are in Europe. Belgian is an English company, and then we have a 7 um, cable company all across Europe and North Africa. And
Wow.
uh, we're about 2,000 employees,
Okay.
and our product are all related to high performance connectivity components and solutions.
So, do you want to maybe explain what that term means? I know people hear that term connectivity solutions a lot. What exactly is that space?
That's a great question. So basically, it's transmitting the signals from an emitter to receiver at a very high level. So that signal can be electrical, such as RF. It could be
Mm-hmm.
data. It could be power. It could be fiber optics. If I use the example of a cell phone, right? So there's a signal getting out of the cell phone, going to the tower, then going to the network, to the receiver, and then there is the same path back to the emitter, right? So that's connectivity. And that connectivity in the market we serve has to be there all the time. If the connectivity is lost, things can happen that are unexpected.
Sure. So it's quite a broad term, and there's a lot covered in that space. It might actually help if you just narrow it down a little bit. If you could tell us, I guess, firstly, what are the main industries that you serve in this space, and then what is the difference between your ICC and the ECA divisions? Because those are some terms I've seen on your site quite a few times.
Okay. Definitely, we at Infinite, we have about 500,000 standard products in our portfolio across these 19 companies. So we have a very broad product portfolio with about 28 different product categories. And um, so th- Today we organized in 4 business units, with 19 companies. So the first one is focusing on industrial.
Mm-hmm.
And as its name says, it's all about factory automation, medical, and installation of offices and so on and so forth. The second business unit is focused more around data center and network communication,
Okay.
as well as protecting all the signals. So trying not to go too technical here, but if you look at a cell phone tower, when you have lightning strike, usually the cell phone tower receive that. And so you need protection so that either the RF signal is not being damaged. So that's the second business unit. The third one is all about RF products,
Okay.
from cable to amplifier to attenuator, this type of product. And the last one, which you call ICC, it's all about cable. And cable serve mostly the AV equipment, AV industry, such as a crane, such as large equipment for producing, as well as EV charging station. And I realize I did not respond to all your questions, right? But our industry coverage
No,
is
totally
broad.
fine.
Yeah. We have about a 16 to 20 industry that we support across our large portfolio.
Wow. Okay. No, I mean it's the more I learn about this, it's such a broad space, but it's so important. It impacts so many different areas of different companies, different industries. So
Absolutely.
very. I mean, I think it's important people understand it and the scope of it. Um, so I wanted to get drill down a little bit. There's something you've been talking about with me for a while now, which is your unmanned systems. I know that's it's an area that's like is very important in the company right now, and it's an area in general that I know a lot of companies show a lot of interest in. It's kind of crucial to a lot of different areas that are being developed right now in the industry. Do you want to talk a little bit about what unmanned systems include?
Yes. And definitely, unmanned systems are getting a lot of attention. And I'm sure all of us are looking at what's happening in Iran
Hmm.
and a so-called Iran war. And in the past few years, the Ukraine-Russia war, these actors, including ourselves, US, we are using these drones, and they are somehow changing, disrupting the way the war is conducted. But let me go back to your question first, unmanned systems, right?
Hmm.
So unmanned system covers from the space. So basically the limit between the atmosphere and the space. There are unmanned system there, and they go all the way to the bottom of the ocean. So they are unmanned systems sitting at the bottom of the ocean, monitoring what's going on there in terms of submarine activity or anything else, boats, ships, and there is everything in between. So if you go from the space, then you have the one flying, and they can
Hmm.
be flying as high as a few meters. Sorry, as low as a few meters, but as high as like 30, 40,000 feet. So that's
Wow.
what people use called drones or UAVs, unmanned air vehicle or unmanned air systems,
Sure.
UAS. And then there is the one on the ground. So people have seen this image of kind of animals, dogs or larger
Yes.
animals carrying a load for the troop on the ground. So that unmanned ground system. And then we have also the unmanned sea vessel, basically
Okay.
ships and boats. So that's where that, and obviously, as I said earlier, is the unmanned underwater vehicles or UUVs. So there are all these unmanned system is made all these categories.
So, from what I understand, I mean, the reason that this is so, I guess, groundbreaking, so industry changing is a these are doing the roles of that people technically throughout history and put in danger doing. So it's actually protecting people, saving lives potentially. But B, it's unlocking areas where we couldn't go as people because of the harm that it could have caused on the human body or the stress in the human body. So places like you said in the atmosphere, deep sea, where if you were constructing a vehicle that was manned, you'd have to account for pressures, other conditions that people would have to endure in those spaces.
Yeah, and absolutely. And so there is a revolution happening. So if you look at what an unmanned system is a kind of a robot.
Hmm.
So some are controlled by human, some are moving into autonomies, and we may touch about that later on. We talk a lot about into the combat or war arena, but also unmanned systems are changing dramatically our society day to day, and that's giving the birth of what we call the low altitude economy. So I don't want
Hmm.
just to talk about the let's say the combat one, but maybe talk a little bit
Yes.
about the civilian applications or commercial I think one of the most famous one are grocery delivery to the house of people.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
yeah,
I've seen those all over Los Angeles.
yes. And what is also very critical is a first responder. So now you have so-called a drone into a box. The drones sit in a box on the top of the building. And when something happened, a fire, a car crash, a shooting, the first responder will send a drone and see what's going on there in that scene. And based on what the drone sees, then the first responder will decide what to send there. Okay.
Sure.
And if there is a robbery, as an example, the drone will follow the cars, assuming the thief are in the car. That prevents high-speed chase, which is very dangerous, right? Especially crowded environment.
Right.
So that's what's happening in the city. But if you look at also outside the city, I was talking earlier on the cell tower. Think about that. The cell tower is an issue. It's winter. It's icy.
Hmm.
Someone who has to climb there. It's a high
Right.
risk job. Okay. You cannot just send a drone, see what's happening, make an assessment with cameras. And in the future to come, you can even think about the drone doing some repair there. So
Right.
that will first reduce the risk of someone falling from the cell tower, number one. Number two will also replace the human, as we know we have a manpower shortage in the economy. So we can have this robot replacing human that we don't have. And that doing that at a much lower cost versus a human. So
Right.
we're just at the beginning of that revolution of what I call the low altitude economy.
So obviously, in this space, the buzzword that everyone's been saying is artificial intelligence. We
Yes.
won't get too much into it because that's not the point of today's episode. But how much of this do you think would be possible without that input? Do you think this is kind of unlocked, I guess, the door to all of this stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. So let me, although I said I don't want to talk too much about war, but let me go back into war, right?
Sure.
And so if you look at the Ukraine-Russia war,
Hmm.
where the two sides have perfected the use of drones and counter drones, if you think about connectivity back to what we do at Infinite, right? So you have a signal between the operator somewhere on the ground, far away from the battlefield, controlling the drone. The transmission is through RF signals. And so from the controller to the antenna of the drones, and then the drone react to whatever the operator is telling the drone to do. The change there is that the enemy is jamming the signal. So the outcome could be that the operator loses the control of the drone.
Right.
Okay. Now there are techniques to prevent the jamming, anti-jamming, then jamming of anti-jamming, and so on and so forth. It's like a never-ending story there.
Yeah.
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 But one of the resolution, there are a few ways to resolve that. One of them is using fiber optics, and now you have this drone flying, being controlled by the fiber optics, and then they do their whatever they have to do. So that's immune to jamming. Or there is a radical way of doing that. You put a AI chip into the drone. I'm going to say very high level, right? You give the mission to the drone. So someone before the drones takes off. The
Right.
operator program what he or she wants the drone to do,
Hmm.
and then the drone takes off and goes do its mission. That is really, I'm sure all of us, all of you knows about Terminator.
Yes. Of course.
That's what is happening here in the battlefield of Ukraine and Russia war, where there are drones that fly around until they find their target. Now, the difference between Terminator and us is that they have limited power, energy.
Hmm.
And so either they accomplish that mission before they run out of battery or gas, or they drop at the point in time. But this is where it's going. So I'm sure there are other things going on which are classified by governments.
And then I guess the limiting factor as well, other than batteries, I guess computing power and reasoning power. So those drones have a very specific programmed out thing. They an outline. They stick within those parameters. But as it evolves more, I imagine that they're going to become more autonomous. So that they can reason, say, okay, if this happens, this is how I react. If this happens, this is what I do. So I guess
Yes,
in that space, that's the next step is building that
yes,
intelligence.
absolutely, James. And yes, all these drones are equipped with sensors, with camera, with lidar, and they will be able to perceive what's happening around them. But let
Right.
me move up another step forward. The concept of swarm of drone.
Yes.
So what I've been hearing, again, I'm sure a lot of things are classified there, is that you would have kind of the control drone, the one with the smart intelligence that may stay a bit away from, let's say, the danger area. And then around that kind of command drone, there will be a lot of drones there that will accomplish a
Mm,
particular mission, whether it's go eliminate a target, go see what's going on behind the line of horizon, or monitor, protect the troop on the ground. So more and more we're going to go into this concept of drone controlling drones, swarm of drones, and helping the troops on the ground, or doing this something totally without any troops on the ground, um, as the battlefield becomes very lethal.
right. And I mean, this is going to be applied obviously outside the battlefield too. So I imagine you have what you would call instead of sort of a drone workforce, where you'd have
Yes.
one drone managing a team of drones to complete complex tasks.
Yeah. The same, by the way, can apply, as you know, right, in the industry. Usually, military, in some aspect, lead the way, right? They set up
Yeah,
some new technology, and then over time, it goes into the civilian
civilian
economy,
purposes. Hmm.
and you could have totally a team of drone, like we have a team of people accomplishing tasks. We could have a
Right,
team of
exactly.
drones under the supervision of the kind of the command and control drone doing all these activities. That is definitively something that will happen.
Right. So I guess what's next? What would you say is the next step in progressing down this path? What's holding us back currently as something achievable that we can overcome in this area?
That's a great question. So I think if I look a little bit of the unmanned system economy, and we focus a lot on about drones because that's the the, the biggest part right now of unmanned system, which is growing about 15% CAGR. Um, um, so China historically has been dominating that market,
Right.
especially on the commercial ones. So China controls about 90% of the worldwide market. Okay.
Wow.
Yes. And obviously DJI is 50% owned by Chinese government. So they're also supplying drones to the Chinese government, which by the way, they're helping Iran and Russia to build their drones. So right now, obviously I'm not speaking on behalf of the US government, but we are disadvantaged. We don't have an ecosystem in the US to be able to produce that number of drones. If you look at what's happening in Iran, we already spent $4 or $5 billion of missile ammunitions, while Iran has likely spent 10% of that or
Right.
20% of that. So the question is how to build an ecosystem in the US, not only to build the drones and human systems serving the military, but also for the civil economy. So
Right.
there are a lot of things happening there. I don't know how much you want me to deep dive, but regulators have published a certain number of laws there to help this.
Yeah, I actually have been following that situation. I've been reading quite a bit about that. It's a massive push from the
Yes,
government there to encourage this sort of development in any way possible. And
yeah.
I did see that well, there was a festival earlier this year where they'd showcased that drone technology. I'm not sure if you saw it, the one where they had all of the humanoid drones doing
Oh,
kung fu.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
Yes. But let me say you more about what's going on, right? So, because the various government agencies have issued regulation. So first, Department of War or DOW, former DOD, has now put in place a program called Blue UAS, means that component must come from, let's say, must not be from China
Okay.
and possibly made in US, although not all of them can be made in US. And
Right.
basically they will have to be certified by US government to be used by the military personnel. So that's on the military side, and we see more and more in our customers requirement for having down the road moving to US country of origin,
Hmm.
and meanwhile moving back the supply chain towards continental US. On the commercial side, FCC has just issued a memo at the end of last year banning any new foreign made drones and components. So still, you and I can use the existing drones and models, but definitely there is a big push from government to reshore not just the production of drones, but all the way down to components, all the way down to batteries, electrical motors, cables, and all the products that we supply to Infinite Electronics. I mean, a lot of these connectivity products go into drones, and we see definitively a big push to move that back to the US. It will take years.
Yeah, no, definitely. And then just the actual resources, the base resources that we require to manufacture some of that stuff, the US doesn't have access to nearly the same supplies, obviously, as you said, as China. So it's just
Yes,
you have to import those goods in the first place, then manufacture at a higher cost at a slower rate. So obviously, there's complications here, and it's going to take. I mean, realistically, it's going to take at least 10 to 20 years to be established in any competitive way in the United States. Which obviously it's a goal worth working towards, but it's not an immediate success. It's physically impossible.
yeah, absolutely. And we talk a lot about rare earth material,
Hmm.
where for which China controls, I believe, 70-80% of the extraction and maybe more in
Exactly.
terms of refining. But if you look at this, I'm sure you've seen these drones with a brushless motor, right? And
Hmm.
they use rare these motors use rare earth material. Same for battery, and
Hmm.
so it will take years. But I think current event in Ukraine, current event in Iran, are going to accelerate this. And there is one reason. And if you look at a Shahed drone, which everybody's talking about that, right? It's the drone made by
Hmm.
Iran. They cost $35,000 plus minus, right? Depending on what they are doing. And we are to take them down, we use a pack free, which costs millions of dollars. So
Hmm.
this is called the asymmetrical war that we
Hmm.
cannot sustain as a nation. That will accelerate this move. And back to the rare of material, the Department of War has taken a share into a few companies in the US making rare earth material. So what I'm expecting over time, this conflict will accelerate us moving back into the US or moving back into friendly countries, such as
Right.
Australia or England and so on and so forth.
Right. Definitely. And on the European side, is it a similar situation happening there as well?
Great question. I'm going to a show in Europe in a couple of weeks, but definitely it's the same situation. I think the wake up call from Europe has happened sooner than the US because obviously they are closer to Ukraine. And in fact, some Ukrainian companies have partnered with European defense company to produce drones. First, they need to produce drones outside Ukraine, and second, Europe. You may have read that last year, James, but a few airports in Europe were shut down because drones were flying over. I think Munich
Yes.
was a high-profile one, and so European is really accelerating also the adoption of drones and unmanned system into a battlefield, but also into civilian applications, because Europe is
Right.
suffering the same issue as the US, lack of manpower.
Right.
And
And what about raw
yes,
material access as well? Is that an issue
yes,
there as well?
yes. I mean, Europe and US, we all have relied a lot on China sourcing from China, and we
Hmm.
all face the same problem. Which, by the way, by teaming up, back to missing, we can accelerate that. Teaming up will also enable the acceleration of that.
Right. For sure. Um, so just to bring things back with the connectivity side of things,
Yes.
How does this factor into the drone technology? What role does that play in the operation of these unmanned systems?
Yes, connectivity is a critical aspect. I touched a little bit about it before, but if you think about at eye level what a drone is, by the way, it could be it's the same for on the ground or the one on the sea, slightly different for underwater and space, but there is a need of communication between the operator, the pilot, and the drone. And
Hmm.
a lot of that is based on RF signals. So basically, on the controller, you need antennas. You need the amplifier to transmit the signal all the way to the drone that will have as antennas receive the signals, and then inside the drones there is cables going all the way to the control unit that will tell the drone what to do, right? Where is the drone at? Where the drone does need to go, and all this communication has to be done real time. As you can
Right,
imagine, these things are moving, right? They are not stationary.
right,
Maybe not moving as fast as a jet fighter, but they move. So what I've heard is, as problems in the field, is that the pilot lose sight of the drones. There is micro interruption of the signals, and the drone can be off by a certain position. If you think about the civilian application, recently there was a drone who hit a building in the Dallas area. The drone could be hitting a building and falling on people. So having a communication every time, all the time, is critical. But there are a few things that are really creating problems. Is that um, 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 in the sense that drone are changing directions. So as you can think about, they are subject to a lot of G-force. It's
hmm,
vibrating, and in the field they are manipulated in a harsh manner, right? If you think about a soldier on the battlefield, they are
right,
not going to take care necessarily of the drone, right? They will swap the battery, do this, do that, and make it fly. So it's a very harsh environment. And lastly, if you think about it, a drone could be flying in Antarctica or in the
right.
desert.
Or
So from
under ocean or atmosphere. So yeah, very harsh conditions.
Yes, and then there are different type of drones. We'll not go into details. I'm not sure we have time, but there is the small one, and like we can buy in the retail, but there are also the large one. The famous one is the MQ-9 that Iran has shot a few of them. So there it's kind of, or if you think about the drone that are developed by Anduril and General Atomics, the collaborative combat aircraft, these are almost
Hmm.
like jet fighter
Right,
without a human. So there, the complexity of what's being done and the mission makes the connectivity extremely critical.
right.
Cannot afford to lose a $200 million drone.
Definitely. No, definitely. And I guess limitations wise, here another question: range. What's currently are we looking at range wise for something like this for the signal being received?
Yes, I think if there is no jamming or particular stuff happening, they can fly and they can be controlled from very far away. And uh, some surveillance drone, although some how long they can stay on the air is classified, but I've heard that they can stay days up in the atmosphere watching
Wow.
what's going on the ground. So and still have communication. So again, there is a kind of a game of cat and mouse, as we discussed earlier on,
Hmm.
where um, I've not touched this yet about, but the counter drone. Counter drone is growing at even faster rate than drones because now someone has to make sure to basically take down these drones. Okay,
Right.
and don't know if you saw that, but FEMA has released $500 million in the US. So FEMA is to manage the risk in the US.
Right.
They have issued $500 million, $500 million to equip all the stadium and venues for the World Soccer Cup coming up in June because they realize, oh, we have nothing to protect against incoming drone. So it's creating
Right.
now in the entire economy of how do we counter this?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you're right. This is both an entire industry just encountering the industry. So
Yes, this is going to be a never-ending
yeah, cycle.
evolution.
Hmm.
We are all familiar with the Windows software from Microsoft and the CPU from Intel, right?
Right.
CPU is getting better, software is getting better, then and it keeps going on and on and on and on. I expect the same thing to happen between, by the way, between unmanned system and counter-human system.
Right.
Cat and
Yeah.
mouse
Well,
game.
it's the same as like a antivirus software as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Hmm. So I guess to kind of slowly start to bring things home, um, what would you say people should be paying attention to at the moment? What are some trends that people should keep an eye on?
For unmanned system,
Yeah. Well, I mean, systems or connectivity, whichever you think
yeah,
is more relevant.
yeah, I think the all this ecosystem, if you look at it, and I'm going to talk about US, but same in Europe, and I'm going to look at the military aspect because it's more developed in US than the commercial one. But you have all traditional players, such as the Lockheed Martin, the Raytheon, who used to play and offer a man system, and then you have a wave of startups, new companies. We talk about a few of them: Anduril, AV, Neros, Skydio, etc., which are also disrupting that economy, the defense economy.
Hmm.
Why is this critical, right? These startup work at a different pace as what's called the prime contractors.
Hmm.
They change design almost overnight. So speed becomes how we can support them modifying these designs. And
Mm.
talking a little bit about Infinite Electronics, right? One of our key competitive advantage is speed. We can provide all these connectivity component and solutions very quickly to support the startup designing, developing these new widgets, drones, counter drones. And then they will have to ramp up. And so basically, an entire ecosystem is going to be built over the next few years at a very high speed with change happening, if not on a monthly basis, maybe quarterly basis and so on, and maybe, and in a war context, maybe daily basis. So how is the entire ecosystem going to be able to do that? To be very flexible, but also being able to support volumes.
Right.
And connectivity is going to be a key into that.
Definitely. Um, and then one last thing on your website, I saw that you have a number of subject matter experts. Do you want to talk a little bit about who they are and what they cover and why people should maybe pay attention or read through that?
Yes, I think in our team we have experts in different market and unmanned systems. So typically our experts are what we call product managers, and we have technical support teams. Our
Hmm.
sales team also experts, and as you will see over time, we'll create more and more information about that. Right, this unmanned system economy is nascent in the sense that a lot of these companies they did not exist 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
Right.
We talk a lot about data center. Data center is a big driver of the economy in the US with $1 trillion investment in next 5 years. But the unmanned system might not be as big in terms of dollar, but it's going to be billions and billions of dollars coming up. So definitely we have a lot of experts in our team. We're also learning as we go, right? In this industry, things changing fast, so be open minded and learning every day.
Definitely. And then for anyone who wants to get in touch with the company to learn more, to speak with you or anyone on your team, what are the best ways to contact all of you?
That's a great question, and I'm looking at here to we have the email address which is called drone support at infiniteelectronics.com. So anyone wanting having questions, needing something, the products, advice, feedback can reach us out at that email address. But also feel free to contact me directly. For I did not say that I guess, but for the company, I'm leading the unmanned system and robotics initiatives. So feel free to reach me out directly.
And we'll include your LinkedIn profile link in the video description and the website link as well. Um,
Okay.
and then is LinkedIn probably the best way to keep up with what's happening at the company?
Um, yes, we communicate there. We also issue a lot of on our website. We have a page where the one I think you read, where we communicate, and we're also going to issue a lot of collaterals and communication. We are good. Not sure, but we have a video about drones showing our capabilities,
Okay,
um,
great.
insisting on the fact that we are speed and we offer also product with the right country of origin, and we are able to co-develop with our customers.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
Gabriel, thank you so much. It's been really fascinating. I know this topic right now is so hot, so I think a lot of people would be
yes,
very interested to learn more about it. I think also there's a lot of misunderstanding in this space. I think you clarified some of that stuff.
I'm glad I was able to.
Thank you. And yeah, if you
Thank
ever
you.
want to come back on the show, we'd love to have you because this is such a quickly evolving space, and probably in 6 to 12 months, will be a completely different conversation.
Yes, anytime, gents. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And for anyone listening, thank you for tuning in, and we'll have another guest next time.